Jeremy N. Smith has written for Gourmet, Saveur, the Christian Science Monitor, the Chicago Tribune, Montana Magazine, and Discover, among many other publications. His first book, Growing a Garden City, was one of Booklist's top 10 books on the environment for 2011. His new book, Epic Measures, about the largest study of human health ever undertaken, will be published next spring by HarperCollins. He lives in the Lower Rattlesnake neighborhood with his wife, Chrissy, niece, Haley, and 4-year-old daughter, Rasa. Please welcome Jeremy Smith.
I traveled in Europe for a year after I graduated from college. And when I left to go on that trip, I had a backpack that I put 2 pairs of pants, 2 shirts, socks, underwear, toothbrush, and a tuxedo. Because my mother told me, you're going to Oxford, and in Oxford there are balls, and to balls one must wear a tuxedo. And she was right. Of all the places I was going, I was aimed toward Oxford because my girlfriend had just a few months earlier won a Rhodes Scholarship, which is one of the top academic awards you can get. Like 30 people in the country get it, of all graduating seniors in college. And it pays for 3 years of graduate school at Oxford, all expenses paid. And so I had scrambled after she won that. We had dated long distance. We were not at the same college. We were thousands of miles apart. And we had dated long distance for 4 years, and I didn't want to stay long distance for 7 years. So I just applied to anything and everything I could to get across the ocean. And I got a crazy scholarship, you won't believe it, but it paid me to travel in Europe for a year. Poor me, poor me. There were requirements. I was not allowed to have a job or enroll in any institution of formal study. So I land in London. Look it up, Henry Russell Shaw Fellowship. It was on my business card. Okay. I land in London. I take a bus to Oxford. I get there. She greets me. And she says, you know, I don't think we should live together. You know, I don't think we should necessarily like see each other that often. You know, we've done the long distance thing for so long, it's just a lot to go from almost nothing to everything. Okay. And I check my email the next day, and I get a message from my friend Paul, who has just been fired from his job at .com in San Francisco. And he is celebrating, or if you call it that, he is using his entire severance package to throw a formal dinner party in Amsterdam. My mother is a genius. Black tie. I take the train across England, through the Channel Tunnel into France, Belgium, Amsterdam, 24 hours later. The entire time, of course, I've worn my tuxedo because you don't want it to wrinkle. And I get there, Paul's at the train station on one of those big Dutch bikes. He says, "Get on the back, James Bond." We ride to his apartment, and not his apartment, the apartment of a friend he was crashing in. And it is filled with like Noah's Ark worth of food. It's just every fancy, amazing cheese, meat, vegetable of every color, shape, size, whatever. And it's like 5 hours till dinner. And he says, "You're making this, and this." And he's bookmarked the pages in a book. I have never cooked in my life. And I start looking. It's a book. I've never read a cookbook. It says Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking by Marcella Hazan. It's got like a white-haired lady with a wooden spoon on the sort of side. And I start reading. And these three words, it says always, only, at least, all the time in this book. Always start the onions before the garlic and the saute or you'll ruin it. Only use Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, not just something called Parmesan. Soak the zucchini at least 30 minutes to remove any impurities before trying to use a zucchini for anything. Okay, so recipe 1 is like a stuffed spinach pasta with ricotta cheese, ham. There's like nutmeg somewhere, chard, and it's 10 pages long, the recipe. Well, I turn around, Paul's chopping, dicing, cooking, baking, whatever. Okay, so just step 1, make the pasta. Refer, 30 pages, there's 30 pages in a different chapter how to make the pasta. And it's like, make the pasta. I mean, it's like, to start with the spinach, I'm literally elbow deep with flour in just a few minutes, okay? Beating the eggs in, and time passes, I'm immersed. People start coming in, beers are cracked, backs are slapped, people are calling me chefy. I've got an apron over my tuxedo, and I'm cooking this, that, and the other, and it's proceeding, and it's amazing. And at the very end, this dish is like a Yule log or something, and it's wrapped in cheesecloth. At the very end, this pasta that's been stuffed with all these things, and then that's like dropped like Jacques Cousteau into this boiling water. And we took it up, and it's midnight when it's unfurled, and the steam and the cheers. And I'm with friends, and it's a transformative moment. And I go back the next day. Party's over. And I get there, and I check in with my girlfriend, and she feels the same way she felt before my transformative moment. She has not had a transformative moment. And so, okay, I've got this I'm actually going to travel on my traveling fellowship. And I hang up my tuxedo in her closet, and I take my backpack with my shirts and pants and shorts and toothbrush, and I go to the bookstore, and I get Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking by Marcella Hazan, and I start carrying that instead of the tuxedo. I go to France, and I'm, baking zucchini, and I go to Italy, and I'm making pizzas and, spaghetti carbonara. I, I meant to spend a week. The ferry gets wrecked with bad weather, and I'm stuck in the island of Santorini, the southernmost island of the Aegean Sea, for like 3 extra weeks with like 3 Argentinians. We're the only tourists on the island, and I'm making like ossobuco, and I'm telling stories from Marcella Hazan, Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking by Marcella Hazan, and I'm telling people why they should never use a garlic press, and how, if you don't have canned, tinned, imported San Marzano tomatoes, who are you? And a year passes in this fashion, and I at the end, I go home. And now I have a long-distance relationship, and we are very good at a long-distance relationship. And at the end of this summer that I've been home, we've been doing the email, okay, I'm going to go back. It's going to work. We've been fools. We're great together. I get a one-way, we're going to get an apartment together in Oxford. She's moving out of the dorms. I get a one-way ticket, and I fly across with my backpack. And I get there, and I land in London, I take the bus, and I get out, and she greets me, and she says, I don't think this is a very good idea. So I say, well, you're splitting the ticket home with me. And putting our money together, we find a ticket that's like the first ticket we can afford is in a week. And I have a week in her apartment. She goes to class. I watch TV, I read, and I cook. And I've got all the time in the world. I want an eggplant Parmesan sandwich. Okay, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's 6 o'clock at night, I take the eggplant, I salt it, I bread it, I saute it, I'm chopping the tomatoes, I'm getting the right cheeses. It's midnight, Okay, I got that. It's pulling out of the oven. Okay, now I got to make the bread because I want a sandwich. You know, I get the olive oil, I get the flour, you know, always only at least kind of flour, of course. And I make the bread, and, you know, it's 6 in the morning. I got to let it cool, you know, at least half an hour. And, you know, I slice it, I eat it while watching television. It takes 5 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, what am I going to have for dessert? And that's the next 12 hours. So my girlfriend comes in last day, and I pull in like an olive oil bread, whole wheat olive oil bread out of the oven. She goes, ooh, warm bread. You know, and she cuts it and puts butter on it. You're supposed to let it sit at least half an hour. But she doesn't know that. She doesn't do it. And I watched the butter melt, and I could say that was my heart, right? And, you know, that's not true, because here I am 13 years later. But, it felt like that at the time. So, you can lose your backpack. And you can outgrow your tuxedo, and you can even have a cookbook that gets kind of worn to shreds. And you can't use that too much anymore. But, I knew those recipes now. I had them with me. I'd spent a year cooking them over and over and over. And I could make them for new friends. I could make them for new girlfriends. I could make them for my eventual wife, and now for our 4-year-old daughter. And, I think those are the most precious things we carry, the ones that are, no one can take with us because we know them by heart. And I think they're the most delicious ones as well. Thank you.